There we are. We are live right now. And I'm here today with my friend Alan Steinfeld. Hey,
Hello.
hey, Alan.
Oh,
And
hey, good to see you. How's this series going for you?
oh, it's fun. Um, it's what basically at the beginning of this new year. I've done a lot of interviews over the last couple of years, but at the beginning of the year, I thought that it would be nice to, because a lot of people are tired of being cooped up in their house, and
Mm.
and uh, and some folks are kind of coming to the end of they're not that well equipped for this solitude, this forced
Mm.
retreat, and
It, it's
um,
probably good for them, though, right? I
well,
mean, to
I
be with
think so,
yourself.
yes, but not everybody sees it that way, and so it's a
Yeah.
so I thought, well, let's do some interviews and kind of expose folks in a sense of how's everybody else making out, just to give people a bird's eye view, and we'd love to hear about how, I want to hear about your book, but I also want to hear about how things are in New York, and how
Well,
you've
I
been.
had actually left I have been traveling. I'm in New York now, but I've been traveling. I haven't really been here because it's been depressing in a sense. All the reasons people come to a city like New York, the restaurants, the museums, the gatherings, it's not happening. So so why be here in a way, right? Because the reason people come together in cities is to be together. And if you can't be together, then I think this is signifies a shift in how people are living. Decentralization is more sort of where we're heading to as a society, as a global society. We could be in touch, like you're in Calgary, I'm in New. We can be in touch on these in these communities, but we don't have to live on top of each other. And I think that's one of the things this virus has done is show us that we can return to nature. We can live simpler. We don't have to be going out to. I mean, I spent all my money in restaurants for the last 20 years. That's what I've done. Really, but now, I've cooked for myself and I really like my own cooking. Like I know what I know what's in the food. It's
Yes.
like so for me, I've really enjoyed this time. I mean, I'm not rested now, but generally I get some good sleep because I'm not up till 2 in the morning hanging out with people, and it's been a really, I had to say, hesitate to say great shift, but it's been a shift, a powerful shift, and it's planetary. It's global. It's for every single person, whether you believe the virus was real or man made or this or that, and you don't like wearing masks or you do. It doesn't matter. It's affected every single person. And it's kind of created a collective global consciousness. That's another sort of powerful response to what we've been going through. Yeah, I didn't think it was going to go on this long. I mean, it's been now over a year, just about a year. It's like,
Yeah.
really? We're still like doing this thing?
Yes,
But
and it could
yeah,
be literally, it could be another year.
I don't think so. But then again, I didn't think it was going to be a year to begin with. So it could be, but I guess I hope not. And I think the numbers are shifting. You don't know, but it is. I think it depends on the global lessons we've had to learn that will affect the way this thing plays out. I think there was a dialogue with Seth Jane Roberts who's talked about this is all about collective consciousness and where we have been unconscious. So, does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah, to me it does. But this last year for me has been a real year of introspection. You
Hmm.
know, I've literally been home a lot. I've spent a lot of time with. I've really enjoyed Muji, uh, and I don't know if we've ever spoken about him, but Peter kind of turned me on uh, to Muji.
Yeah.
Peter
I mean,
Gordon.
he seemed like a nice guy, I have to say, and this is just my opinion, and what people say about opinions, but I felt there was a little bit of ego there. Um,
Well, I
but
think that we all have, and I've spent enough time watching him to recognize that there's many times when he owns it.
all right, all right.
He's you know, I've probably spent an hour to 3 hours a day.
Wow, you've become a devotee in a
I
way
I,
there.
I have. I've gone down the rabbit hole, and
All right.
um, and and the neat thing about being on camera is like we have better than front row seats, and so I've really watched closely, and I've listened to his, and of course there
Yeah. Well,
um
I don't know about of course you put yourself up there as a teacher but I haven't met anyone who doesn't have ego,
that's
and
right.
I mean they may say, I mean there may be a few. I think Paul, our good friend Paul Lowe in moments has transcended that kind of personal identification. Uh,
Yes.
and and yeah, we're here to have ego. Actually, I think ego's not a bad thing. I
Yeah.
mean, it's part of the incarnational experience. So,
The other day, a couple of days ago, this week, actually, I watched your talk with Dr. David Hawkins,
oh, yeah.
do you remember when you did that talk with?
I do, and that was a great. I mean, I didn't really know that much about him, but he was so much fun, so joyful, and a real dedicated teacher. But what are you going to say about it? What did you get
Well,
from that?
I mean, I've been a fan of Hawkins for 10 years or more, and I remember Paul talking about him. This funny little guy, saying he
Right,
said that he'd watched a video of Hawkins. This is
right,
back in '07 or so, and that here was this man putting what Paul's been saying on a, literally on a blackboard, and and uh,
right.
and
Yeah.
so I've been a fan. I've read everything that the doc wrote, pretty
You
much.
did.
I have, yeah.
I liked him, but again, my opinion is like when you're dowsing for people, it's always no one is clear, even him. It's always filtered. So if you're like on a 700 level, according to him, and and I liked him a lot, but he thought he was clear enough to have an objective opinion. I just disagree. I mean, I don't mean to be critical of everybody, but I think they're all great. I think Muji is great. I mean, if he's helping people, great. But Hawkins didn't get the part where it's like, well, it's still coming through your system. It's still, and maybe he's clear enough. Maybe I'm not clear enough to see how clear he is. So it's like that.
you
So
you know, my
yeah,
feeling is that if somebody's vibrating according to his scale in
yeah,
the mid 500s, at unconditional love,
yeah.
um, you know, that's good enough. I want to hang out with that guy, you know. Uh,
Yeah, according to him, according to his scale. I mean,
yeah,
that's what I'm saying. But I think he had some amazing experience. He doesn't really talk about them, I don't think, in the book, but he had a Kundalini awakening. Does he talk about that when he was younger and
yeah, oh sure,
stuff?
yeah. He
Okay.
talks about it in a couple of his books,
Oh, he
and
does. Okay.
yeah, he talks about his awakening in the snowbank, and
Right. In the snowbank. Right. So, I mean, all these great teachers all have something to give us, and they're out there because they want to give,
yes, yeah.
and I don't mean to find fault with all of them, but
Well,
I think, this time has also showed me, yeah, it's also about going in. What were you gonna say?
what I see with you and I
Yeah.
we have something to give, and it
Well, we're
doesn't.
giving it now, aren't we?
Yes, and it doesn't mean that there. If I use Hawkins' scale, there's times when I'm caught up in resentment or fear or anger or guilt or shame. I'm very low on the vibrational scale, and yet, um, seems like as soon as I get in a position where I can really serve somebody, I'm not there anymore. I've moved up the scale. I'm hopefully
Right.
they're in love.
But even acknowledging if you're low, that moves you up the scale. Actually, to tell you the truth, I've been a little low these days because I just did a really great interview and I thought I saved the file and I trashed it. And I said, "Oh my God, that was one of my best interviews," and I lost it. So I'm just like really a little down. That just happened last night. It's like just dealing with my own ignorance. So I'm a little down today, but I'm just being with that and not trying to make myself feel better or worse. But I think, I made a mistake. And I guess we all do. I mean, that's something that made me feel better. I was listening to the political analysis about the new US president, and this guy said, well, he's bound to make some mistakes, but we're all human. It's like, oh, okay, that just hit me. Yeah. Okay.
I, I
You're gonna
actually
say,
saw that video that you just talked about because I've been watching, the news on the new president as well.
right.
So yes, and being aware that you're
Mhm.
feeling down and, brings us into the moment. Paul always said,
Yeah.
be here now. Like, oh, I'm really feeling down. As soon as we
Well, I'm feeling down. I
as
am
soon as
feeling
we're
down.
there in acknowledging that, then we're not really kind of in that feeling anymore. I mean, it shifts.
I'm still in that feeling, to tell you the truth. I'm feeling down. I'm still feeling down, even when I'm down, feeling down,
Yeah,
because that's my fault. How could I do something that anyway? I'm just, but yeah, I mean, I have this sign. I just dug out some old files, and it says, "Change self-talk." The way we talk to ourselves.
yes, yes,
That is like, when you're alone, when you're away from all the teachers, when you're just sitting with yourself, how are you talking to yourself? That is the biggest teacher. Are you, you know, let's take someone like Trump. He's an overinflated egomaniac, and the way he talks to himself probably makes him feel better about everything he does. And
yes,
if you, not saying that's good or bad, it's just saying, the self-talk when you're with yourself is the essence, I think, of real fundamental change.
yes.
For me, so that's just something
Well, the
I've
beauty of
learned.
I think where we've been over the years is that we are aware enough
Hmm.
to be able to see that. We can
Well,
watch the talk.
I think we have to remind each other. I found this old little car, and it's like, oh yeah, I mean, I forget. We forget. We
Yes,
go
of
into
course.
the
Yep.
old habits
Yeah.
of thinking, habitual. That's one of the great things about Joe Dispenza's work. Joe Dispenza
Yes, of course.
talks
Yeah.
about,
Love Joe.
yeah, changing the habit of being yourself was his first book,
Yeah.
and it's like those fundamental thought form realities that we probably inherit from
Our
our
conditioning.
families.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who
Yeah.
probably did the same sort of internal dialogue habitually. But yeah, me and you and other people, we're at least aware that we can separate ourselves from the internal dialogue and say, oh, it doesn't have to be that way. We can do it differently. It
Yes, we can. Yeah. Did you interview Joe?
Many times. I knew Joe for about 25 years. I knew him when he was at the Rampa School in the 80s, where he was already starting to be a great teacher of that knowledge. So, yeah, I stayed with Joe out in Washington. I knew his kid. I know his kid. Whoops. There you go. Another one of the things I shouldn't have done there. But
I love you, Alan.
thanks. We all have our moments. But anyway, I do like Joe a lot. I've seen him really mature. I'm glad it didn't fall on my computer. But yeah, I'm- I I think it's about what Paul said, conscious. We have to stay conscious
Yeah.
of
Be here now. Be here now.
our actions.
Yeah.
What? What's that?
Be here now.
Of what be here now, but also, oh, if I do this, maybe this will happen there. And it's like I wasn't conscious last night when I erased this file, you know? So like, I mean, I thought I was tired and so I thought this would look nice standing up, but I didn't realize it wasn't exactly balanced, or I thought, but boom. So yeah, we have to stay. And I think, this time with ourselves and with each other, David, thank you. Thank you for, having me back on.
Could
Um,
could I say something about last night?
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
it
yeah.
was a fun it was a funny night in the ethers.
It
Now,
was.
uh,
Thank you for saying that. What did you
I
pick
really
up?
think I think that there was um, like I woke up about 3 o'clock and literally was in that place between sleep and awake in a state, that and there was lots of sometimes in that place, there seems to be some dark energies and
Mm,
and
maybe.
you're the third person I've talked to today already who had kind of a strange thing happen last night, or and I mean,
Really? That makes me feel better.
well,
That
it's a big
doesn't
show, and I think we didn't realize how big a show this is. I mean, we only see a small part of it, and
mm,
there's so much going on around us, in the
right,
ethers that we're not able to perceive from from the level that we're at, and
right,
I mean, like your book, you're going to tell us about. You've done all
right,
this research on extraterrestrials and
w-
UFOs,
right.
and
Yeah.
when it's totally out of our nobody perceives this. It's totally out of our perception.
Well, that's what you're saying about the little box, but I I do have to say, about after feeling really bad about losing one of the best interviews I thought I've done in a long time, I did get an email from Deepak Chopra who was endorsing my book. So it's like that was a
Wow.
real. I know that was major. So it's like I had to smile even though I was feeling down. It's like, wow, that's pretty good. That Deepak, and we've been sort of friends, and he's been very nice to me. Actually, I've been on a serious radio show twice talking about extraterrestrials. So I said I just threw it out there because it's not really his field, but I said, hey, Deepak, um, would you want to endorse this book? And he wrote back and gave me a really nice endorsement, even though it wasn't. Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So uh, I think there's a balance. It's like that balance, the other part of me that was not feeling good, and I don't know. It's like being stretched in two directions. Like, wow, that's gray and that's awful, and and
Yeah.
and maybe it's about just bringing the duality together. Of course, I think Paul would say, well, it's neither great nor awful, because if you're always in that pendulum, you're always going to be in the pendulum.
Yes.
So, so it's like just
Yeah.
that balance,
Just let it go.
because
Be in the not knowing.
being the not knowing and not the not caring, but the place inside where nothing outside has to throw you, But Bashar says it's not circumstances that matter, it's how you feel about the circumstances that matter, and that you think matter, and that is under your control.
Yeah.
You might
So
feel
surrender.
down, but surrender, yeah, but I think if we smile, I mean, even if you're feeling down, exactly, it changes physiology. It's like
Yes, it does.
the Taoist call the inner smile. So, I mean, not to force it, but sometimes you have to force the smile just to shift reality, but inner reality. But
So
thank you for
tell
mentioning the book. What?
Well, tell us about that. How did you get involved, or how did you get interested in extraterrestrials or
Well,
UFOs?
can I screen share my page? Can you allow me to screen
I
share if
don't
you make
know
me
if
a
how to do
co-host?
that.
You
Um,
make me a co-host. You go under participants and you see
yes,
under the camera it says more,
yes.
and then it says co-host.
It
Do you
says
see something like? Yeah.
allow participants to rename, to start video. Uh,
To screen share? Does it say
I'm not seeing, so I'm in participants.
anything about co-host? Oh,
Um,
I don't want.
yeah, okay, I'm
Well,
up
you could
here.
pull it up on your Amazon. It's
Uh,
okay. I can talk about this
it
anyway
does not
while
say
you're looking. I don't want to.
anything about co-hosting.
All right. Well, that's fine. I'll talk about it, and then if you can get to Google, you could share it yourself. Okay.
Okay.
So I mean, I'll go. So just go to Amazon. Alan Steinfeld, "Making Contact" is the name of the book,
Yes.
and that should bring it up. And
Okay, I'll be right back.
how while you're doing that, I'll talk about how I got into this.
Okay, please do. Yep.
I've always been I've always been really fascinated with the stars, outer space. I mean, I would just as a child go out, not that I would could see that many stars in New York City, but I would look at the sky. And when there was a clear night, because I was living out on Long Island, it would just be miraculous. Like, what are those worlds out there? Who it's like there I knew there was other beings out there. I always felt that there was much more to reality than just this little world, although it's a great planet. And so um I don't know, I started to read a lot of science fiction, and I wasn't sure about the alien stuff, but I did have a trip cross country in 1987. I write about this in the book, and I did feel like me and this girlfriend I was with were taken aboard. And then I had a little mark on the back of my leg after this trip. On the back of my knee, there was a little puncture mark there that it was strange. It was a strange little thing. And then eventually I was hypnotized back to that moment. And yes, I saw these beings that for me they weren't the big eyed little grays. They were like more like faceless beings. They didn't have any features, but they were aware. And I think there's probably more than one type. Those are the ones that I saw in this vision I was regressed to. And so then if you start to quiet your mind, you start to pick up, like you were saying, other levels of consciousness. And I think, and I write this in the essay that I put in the book, human consciousness is not of the earth. It's of another level of existence. That's what makes us different than all the animals here. All the animals here on the planet, except dolphins and whales, I think they're from someplace else too. But they just really care about survival and food and mating. They call the 4 F's, fighting, fleeing, feeding, and having sex. Those are the 4 F's. And humans are concerned with those. And depending on what level of consciousness you're on, that's all most people are concerned with. They're just here to make money and make as much money as possible because that's their survival. And then there's another class of people that say, well, it's great to have money and I'm not against that, but why are we really here?
Yeah.
And I'm here to learn for knowledge. That's been my adventure with new realities, is like how much. And learning doesn't really, knowing, having knowledge, it's not as good as having wisdom. You know the difference between wisdom and knowledge? I mean, I'm
Well,
just curious because,
I think I do. Yes.
yeah,
I-
what do you think? I
well, I don't
mean,
know that
uh,
I have a something that I can say about that right now. I think that what's happened in my life and it is that experience has given me wisdom. You know,
exactly. That's exactly where I was going for. You could read all the books in the world, like I have on my shelves there, and you won't have wisdom. Might have a little knowledge, but it's exactly what you said. It's through experience that you gain wisdom. And
yes.
so, uh, but you have to have a little bit of knowledge in order to qualify some of the experiences. Because if you have an experience that's beyond your
Language.
level of languaging, yes, distinction, belief, then there's no place to put that, and it becomes abstracted. So I've written this book so people who have had experiences have a place to put that within a greater context. So
Oh, wow.
that's one of the reasons, and because more and more people are having higher dimensional experiences. Because, um, well, did you find the book on
I can't,
Amazon?
of course, I went to the screen and I've
Okay.
opened up Amazon and I can see it, but I don't know how to screen share it. And I apologize. I
Oh,
should
you
know
at the
this.
bottom, it just says screen share. You just go screen share
Well, I see
on the
that.
green, that
And
green,
when I click on it,
and
it
then
doesn't give me
yeah,
the,
doesn't
uh,
give you your desktop.
it,
It should give
yeah, I
you
click
what's
on
on the
desktop
desktop.
and it doesn't, okay, allow
It
Zoom
doesn't all line
to
up.
screen. Okay, just a second. Maybe I'm going to, here we go. Maybe. I think I might have found it. Um,
Okay, I knew. Okay.
Screen
I
recording.
mean,
I might have got it.
it's
Just a second.
not
I'm learning something here
okay.
that I didn't
Okay,
know.
we're all here to we're here to learn.
Yeah.
All right,
Um,
all right, that's good. Okay, I
Location
mean,
service,
I
contact,
just
photos, camera, microphone,
right, but it should
screen
be on your
recording.
desktop, or yeah, or you could I could find it in my desktop, but I don't want to take up the whole interview with that. It's not that necessary.
What I'll do
Um,
though, after we're finished
oh,
here, is I will
oh,
put the link for the book on here. It says in Amazon that it's not available until May 4th.
it's not available till May. It's true. What I'm going to do is send you the link in the chat. That's what I should have done a while ago. And all you have to do is click on that link here.
Okay.
And let's see. There, that might show up. But anyway, getting back to this whole subject, because I mean, it doesn't matter. I don't need to advertise that. It's better just to talk to you, David, because
And I'll
I
put this link
really
on the chat
appreciate.
after too, so people can see it. And
Okay,
I think a lot of people will be interested in your book.
right.
Just our
I mean,
friends. You could have a bestseller
yeah.
if just your friends buy it.
Well, I hope so. I hope it's a bestseller. Yeah. But
Yeah.
no, I'm just being with you and looking at how much you've shifted and changed and dropped into yourself, and how different you are than the person I knew whenever that was 20 or 30 years ago. In a good way, different in a way where you're more self-reflective, you're more in touch, more aware. There's been a shift I can see. I mean, you're just
Funny,
more dropped
here
in.
here we were with Paul,
Yeah,
and he used to say, David, you're quite bumpy.
right. Bumpy means you're a little.
You're quite bumpy.
What did that mean to you, Bumpy, when he said that?
Well, I I wasn't very present. I was always trying to get something. I was trying to get his attention or to get to be recognized. I really kind of had Paul on a bit of a father pedestal,
Right.
and and so I, I I don't think it would be the opposite to smooth.
But how did you change? I mean, okay. I mean, because now I feel I didn't want to said you were bumpy, but now I feel you're more dropped in. What was the change that helped you shift? What did you do internally?
Um, you know, to I mean, I've been, let's say, on this path now since I was 25, and I think of where I came from. I was a street kid, and never went to school, never went to high school, never went to, I was in the old days in the drug business and all of that kind of stuff. So I was a pretty rough upbringing, pretty, alcoholic home and all of that, and so I recognize that I was coming from a long way away. Um,
Hmm.
Caught in this judgment of myself that was so intense, and so a lot of the work that I've done over the years has been in the 12-step world, and
And that
I'm
helped. That really
oh
helped you.
tremendously, and
Yeah, yeah.
but also I didn't have a language. Paul helped us give a language. Dr. Hawkins helped us give a language. Joe
Right.
Dispenza, Napoleon Hill, all of those people helped with languaging,
Right.
Michael Singer, and the
Right.
list goes on and on and on. But this last 3 years, and I had so wanted to be successful in business as an
Hmm.
identity.
Hmm.
Do you know what I mean? As
Well,
an
there's nothing.
identity.
I do. I want to be successful with this book as a writer, as a television producer, as a filmmaker. Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting
Not at
success.
all. But what was wrong was that I put it ahead of my relationship with myself. I put it ahead of the
Mm,
relationship with
right.
universal consciousness, or with now. And
Right.
when I ended up about a year and a half ago, literally sleeping in my store, and
Uh-huh.
and having those moments, of like, holy shit, what's happening here? You know,
Hmm.
and uh, so surrender came. It was a level of surrender that I'd never really, you know, I couldn't have had before. And
That's hard, right? Was it like
it's eye
was
of the
that
needle
like
stuff. It's eye of the needle
yeah,
stuff. Yeah, it's
yeah, yeah,
pulling the camel through the eye of the needle. It's
right. No, it's great that so and that was a shift you when you
yeah.
realize that
And
it's
you
like
you know what, the Satori experience, the Enlightenment Intensive, the
I did it. I hated it, but yeah, I did it. Yeah.
well, we did it in a little bit of it in
Yeah.
'94 in Bali, and
Yeah, that's
uh,
when I did it. It was a little bit. It was like 5 days of torture, I think, or 3 days. Anyway, it's not for me. I feel like anyway,
well,
yeah, what
because of that, because of what we did in Bali, I said I will never do that again.
right,
I
right,
and
right.
so when the business fell apart, and I was really in this place of not knowing what was next, and sitting with my youngest son, who's been to Pune 3 times and who's quite an awakened 20-something-year-old,
Mhm,
and he said, Dad, I think you need to do something that's really going to be like something dramatic,
mhm.
and this thought came to me. We were sitting in the parking lot, actually, out in the back of a restaurant, and this thought came, uh, the Enlightenment Intensive. And he said, that's it. Because he'd done a
Mm,
7 day in Pune. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. No, no friggin' way am I doing that. He said, that's it, Dad. That's it. And so I went. And what happened, like, by day 2, because I went with a different intention. I really did go
right,
to participate. Uh, when we were in Bali, I don't think we knew what we were doing. It was like, holy
right.
shit. And it was just very painful. And
It
it,
was painful, yes. Yeah.
I'm glad to hear you
But
say that, because I
oh no, it
didn't.
was awful. But I did end up doing a 10-day Vipassana, 10 days of silence when I mean, couple, maybe it was 10 or 15 years ago. So
Yeah.
I did go
So
back to that inner place. So yeah,
that
but
question, though, tell me who you are. Tell me who you
right.
are, is like, holy shit.
Mm,
So it popped. And what was interesting, Alan, when I popped in the experience, the Enlightenment Intensive experience, um, it was like into this now place, into this, and I recognized it. We were there many times when we were with Paul, but I always equated it to my old drug days. I always
Right.
say, "Wow, this is like doing mushrooms, man," and or it's like doing MDA, And but when it happened with the Enlightenment Intensive, and it all kind of flowed together, it was like, "Oh my gosh!" And I knew then where this space was. You know,
Right. And I not to get off the subject of you, but I touch on those altered states, those different states in this book on ETs and UFOs, because when you are with these beings, and I've only had these dreams, your consciousness is altered. It is like being on drugs or high, but because that's the only way we can relate to altered states of consciousness. But what
yes,
I write about and other people, it's not just I have a collection about 11 essays in this book called Making Contact. And everyone, including John Mack at Harvard, who contributes to that. I mean, he's no longer with us, but he did have an unpublished essay that I felt really fortunate to be able to publish. But we need, John Mack says, we need to have other ways of knowing. It's not, we know it's either like we're logical, left brain, or we're unconscious, but that's not true. We like when you had that Satori states, it's like it is like getting high, but it's also we're accessing different levels of awareness. And that's particularly true when you're in contact with these beings. This is my thesis and experience. They generate a different conscious field. They actually are in a different conscious field. So like when you're with Paul or some other
no,
people who are
sure,
really clear,
yep.
and you're in that field. Well, imagine being in a field that's so different and so distorted from our perception to the human field. It's like most people actually go unconscious and are traumatized. That's part of the problem with this relationship, is that we cannot stay lucid enough to interact with these beings on the level that they exist. And some people can. I mean, I also have Whitley Strieber in the book, who talks very much about his well, since 1985, that's like 30 something years of him developing a lucid awareness of other states of consciousness in order to interact. And most people just write it off that, oh, it's just a dream. But no, then I make the distinction. It's like dreams, usually you forget about in the morning and you don't remember much of it. But when you have a dream of ET origin, you don't ever forget it. I never forget my dreams when I've had contact, and they don't quite fade away. They become part of the psyche. So I had a dream of this little being handed to me, and it's like I said, "This is weird," but I think it was some kind of hybrid creature that I just couldn't relate to. It was placed in my hands, and it just shifted me to this other state of consciousness, but it was enough to wake me up to another level of reality. So,
Yes. Well, earlier in this conversation, when I spoke about what was going on, what I felt was going on in the ethers last night, you
yeah.
know, it was in an altered state
Mhm.
between I wasn't asleep and I wasn't dreaming and I wasn't, and there was uh, the presence of beings in this state. And I think that, our perception is so small that we can't
Well,
see. And
that's
that's
it.
where,
You're starting to get it. You're starting to reach you're starting to make contact. You are making contact, David.
yes. Yeah.
This is this is exactly what I hope the book will do, or conversations about the book, is to start to acknowledge, cognize the awareness that of these other states, and they may look negative to us, but they're not. They're just different.
Maybe they
And
came to visit last night because they knew I was going to talk to you today.
those are my people. Yeah. Yeah, I got them like doing some advanced work, but I don't know. We like you keep saying, and I've always said we are just seeing through this little net. And then when suddenly this bigger world opens up, we don't know where to put it. We don't know how to contextualize that. So
Again, we don't have the languaging for it. Yes.
that's what my book does. It gives a contextual language to start to place these other experiences within a social context. So now we can converse about it. And
Can I tell you
yeah,
a little story?
yes, yes, yeah. I do have to go on the hour because I got another Zoom. Sorry, I didn't mean to, but we can. I'd love to
Okay, I'll
keep
just tell you
going.
very, very quickly. When I
Yeah.
was in India and I was up in Dharamsala, McLeod Ganj with the Dalai Lama, and I was a weekend in a kind of a workshop with him
Okay.
um, that he led, and being in the presence of the
Mhm.
Tibetans,
Right.
especially the Dalai Lama and his crew,
Yeah.
was so outer worldly.
Mhm.
It was
Yes.
unbelievable. It was really like here I was in the middle of them
Mhm.
often, just observing. I mean, I was there, I was experiencing, but I was also very conscious of this was a totally different vibration. Uh,
Exactly. But you could still relate to it. But imagine if you were in a vibration that was so different that not only were there no words, there was nothing was relatable about even your own identity in this presence. And that is what becomes the trauma of contact. Unless you can let go of the identity we think we have in order to expand into where these beings
well,
really exist.
it's interesting. That's Muji's whole thing.
Well, Muji should have some contact. We'll see how prepared he is.
That
Yeah.
that's that's his whole thing, of letting go of identity, letting go of concepts, letting go of belief systems, letting go of everything in the moment. And he
Mhm.
says, you can pick them up later if you like, but let's just be here now in this way. And he does this little thing where he kind of walks us into that, and where we
Right.
purposely let go everything go. And
Right.
so I'm no longer David. I'm no longer somebody's son or somebody's father or somebody's, and it's a beautiful, and Paul did that too. I mean, he was all about.
But you're not only no longer these things, or I'm no, there's not even the vocabulary to say you're no longer. When you meet the other,
Yes, beautiful.
like, being with the Tibetans is a shift, but we can still relate somehow. But it's like hitting a wall in a sense where it's like you have to totally dissolve in order to meet them on their level, because the complexity of that mind, they're not better than us, they're not greater than us, they are equal to us, but the complexity of their intellectual space and where they inhabit is much more complex and sophisticated, that we have to let go of every. We are very simple creatures, not just me and you, but humans in general. We become obsessed. We think, in a monochrome way. But imagine if you could think on 7 different levels at once or more, with different vibrational fields, where you could shift your conscious to be so multidimensional that this local time and space is only one of what you inhabit as a vast mind of all realities, and taking all that in, the past, present, the future, with divergent timelines as well, and all that coming through this little sense of self. It might blow some people's circuits. So we are slowly acclimating to the realities, like you tapped in last night. I think that's really a key part of this conversation. You started to get the multidimensional experience that you are. And the more we can explore that and support each other in that, and know we're not crazy, because some people, I don't know if they do go crazy, but some people can't handle it because they don't have the support for it.
Well, not for a minute did I feel crazy. I was not
Right.
asleep. I was not totally awake, and I was observing, and
Right.
and at the same time, it was interesting because Hawkins came in
Mm.
and said, this is because he talks about all this.
Oh, he
You
does. Okay.
Yeah, he does. He
Yeah.
talks about the dimensions. He talks about, some of the dark stuff as well. And he says,
Yeah.
that there's no need to play in these areas. It's
Right.
okay. They're here.
Yeah.
It reminds me a little bit of conversations I've heard around ayahuasca.
Yeah, ayahuasca's still very earth-based. I mean, I did ayahuasca. I was looking for the ETs on ayahuasca, but I couldn't find them there because
I think you need to
ayahuasca,
go back.
what's that?
It's different. I mean, there's some possibilities there that I'll talk to you
I
about another time. But
no, but I think ayahuasca is very earth plant based, and where we're going is not plant. We're not, and Castaneda talks about the realm of the inorganic beings, which plant consciousness, although it's organic. This is something new. I feel.
okay.
I mean, ayahuasca will open up altered states, and Daniel Pinchbeck just did a lecture on ETs and psychedelics, but there's something unknown that we are starting to crack the glass ceiling for. And I think and this is what I talk about, a whole new experience of the human identity is starting to be awakened. It hasn't been online. You're starting to crack it. I'm doing a little bit in this book. Other people maybe who read this book will mm, start to let go of a very human thing, or even plant-based, or even alcohol or marijuana. These are old substances, but there's some new, you could call it a substance, but it's a whole new vibration. That's what I get. And it's great if you can practice. I think the best way to practice is lucidity and dream states, if you could, or in the state you were in, because that is your pineal pituitary gland starting to open up to these other levels of awareness. If you can practice that, David, you're going to start to meet these beings.
So Joe talks about them.
Joe does. Joe Dispenza talks about them. Well, Ramtha talked about them a lot, and where we met, where he was, and yeah, Joe's just starting to talk about him, because when I first interviewed Joe, like in the '90s, he wanted to legitimize himself. He said, "No, I don't know about ETs," but now, now he's like, maybe he always knew about it, but it just, even Deepak Chopra starting to talk. Even did you see that astronomer from Harvard wrote a book called Extraterrestrial about this interstellar object that came into our solar system in 2017, Uameamea. And he says, well, that was not a meteorite. That looks like to have the aspects of alien technology. And that's number one bestseller on the Amazon scientific exploration list. So that is a Harvard astronomer, Abraham Loeb, and look that up. So there's a shift, and also now in the U.S., there's the release of more documents by the CIA, by the Pentagon. So
I've
there's a
heard there's
move.
going to be even more of that coming over the next few years.
There is. There's been a 180-day deadline with this COVID relief bill. I don't know what that is supposed to be, able to release all this new information. A good friend of mine you should talk to if you're really interested. He's Canadian. He's writing a book about Canada and the UFOs. Grant Cameron. He's one of the best researchers out there. He's tops in any country, but actually, I'm going to be on a show on February 6th with Grant Cameron. He's in my book too. Linda Moulton Howe, who's really one of the top researchers, and Whitley Strieber. We're all going to be on a program called Saturday Night Alive, which is on my YouTube channel. You can see that on Saturday, February 6th at
I will put the link
youtube.com/.
of your channel on this as well so that people can find you and all the work that you've done. I
Right.
mean, you have hung with some pretty interesting people these last 30 years.
Yeah, well, that's been my highest excitement, is to pursue knowledge. And and just explore the unknown. You know, the
Yes.
subtitle for my new reality show is Making Known the Unknown. And how else are we going to ever evolve unless we embrace the unknown?
You know, you have to be the spearhead to keep us going. And, you know,
Well,
you've always
you're
had the question.
doing it in your way, but
Yeah, well, I think vibrationally, you know, I love, you know, Hawkins' language around vibration. And so often I introduce people to Hawkins just so that they can relate to the scale and give themselves a language, you know, and
yeah,
you
yeah,
know, to be above 600, you know, what happens in that? I mean, then everything opens up.
right. But what if we're using a different scale when we're talking about ETs? Like, you have AM radio and your dial can only go so high, but when you
Yes,
switch to FM, you're at a whole different frequency that's not even on the scale.
yes,
That's what I'm talking about. Or how are you going to pick up Wi-Fi if you're still listening to radios? This is what we're dealing with in the new paradigm of ET realities. It's
okay,
not even on the scale. But I think Hawkins was pretty um, advanced, and I think he was a very evolved soul and knew
clearly,
that and was and able to, well, just being in his presence. I'm just remembering he was so joyful
yes,
um and fun, and he mostly had fun during that interview. You could put that interview in the chat too.
yeah, I
uh,
could, yep, I will.
um but
Because it's two
I,
parts. It's that
yeah,
interview's, you know, you broke it up in two parts.
yeah, and that's what I remember from, from people like Paul or the Dalai Lama. I saw the Dalai Lama. He was getting out of a secret meeting, and I had my camera with me, but I had run out of film. So he stops to get into the limousine. He looks at me as if, well, are you going to take my picture? And it's like, I said, well, like, just not that he was ego, but like he wanted to get his picture out there to help the Tibetan people know more about him. But I just had that moment with him, which was actually better than take hiding behind the camera. It's just like, well, and it's like, well, it's like, and so that's what I remember, the little exchanges with these beings that helped shift us to these other realities. and and,
Yeah,
and
he's definitely another reality. You know, having
yeah,
spent time enough with him, that you know he really is, and I think it's possible for all of us. I think it's possible. I think that you're on that path, and you
yeah.
know, and I pray that I'm also.
You don't have to pray, David. You're there. You're there. I'm giving you the okay. You are on that. You're there. You're on the path.
And
So
you know, so
trust.
there's I
Yeah.
think there may be thousands of us
No,
who are.
I think there's more and more people every day. I'm hearing
Yes,
about people who weren't into any of this stuff, and suddenly they're seeing auras or hearing voices or channeling. This is a what they call an ascension wave. We are moving towards the vibration. So this is why the ETs are here. They can't talk to us on the level of lower density.
that's
We
right. Yep.
need we need to raise up to where we can meet them. It's like when you're talking to your dog, you're not barking at them, right? You're talking in the language that so maybe they'll understand it. This is what the ETs are talking in or meeting us on the level they're at. Hopefully we can rise to the occasion. And there's many people that are like yourself. So could we I'm really enjoying this conversation. Could we pick this up later today even or something?
We
I
could
mean,
pick this up uh Sunday.
Sunday
Could,
might be good.
could you
Okay.
be available Sunday?
Yeah,
Let's
let's pick this up.
Yeah, let's
Yeah,
do another short.
Sunday.
I because I we
Okay.
could talk for 2 hours.
No, I
And
know we can. I just had this
uh,
other appointment. I didn't know how long we are, but
that's
I
okay. Yeah,
do
you gotta go.
no, I do appreciate the level of vulnerability and honesty that you drop into. Maybe you not just for interviews, but maybe you're there all the time. I can't tell because we've just but I think you are a place where you had hoped to be back in the day when you were a little bumpy. You've smoothed out.
Thank you. I'll message you. You want to set up another time. I
Yeah,
love that we're chatting,
yeah.
and I love where you're at. It's you've always been leading this race. There's no race, but you've always been leading the
No,
way.
it's a race. It's a race. It's fun. No, it's fun. It's just about having fun, you
Yeah.
know?
All
Okay.
right, my friend.
Thanks.
Love you. I'll message you and we'll hopefully do a second half.
Yeah, we will. We will.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, David. Thanks for reaching out. Thanks, my
Okay.
friend.